Hey there everyone, welcome back. Brendan here, aka Cliff Jumper, good to see you. And we are going to do some updates right now, not a whole lot of work. Back on the Supercharged VR6 project, and it is living up to its reputation as a Corrado. Some months ago, you may remember, the tensioner bolt let go down in there, and it took a while, but I finally got another tensioner bolt assembly from Germany. But there's a problem with this one. You may notice up in this square area that sits into the bracket, there is not the convenient little threaded hole that it is supposed to have going all the way through it in order for this to thread through and be adjustable. So we are going to do a little bit of exploratory work, pull out what is left of the old assembly, see if this will even work in this bracket. If it doesn't, we may have a couple of options on our hands. We might have to give this to my friend to machine for us a little bit, or we kind of might be at square one. So I might have to, worst case, replace that entire bracket in there. Apparently there's a newer style bracket. So if I drop my camera down in here, there we go, you can see that the bracket curls around the alternator pulley, and where the pulley for the supercharger is supposed to sit is back there, back behind, kind of in between, underneath the main supercharger pulley and back behind the alternator pulley. There's a different bracket that they have put together which brings that pulley out here instead, into this section. And I'm not exactly sure how well it really works, but that's what they're making over at Roof in Germany right now. So I may have to get the newer style bracket and replace this one with the newer one, just for the sake of having a adjustable tensioner pulley that actually works. But we're going to try with this one first and see if it will fit the old bracket at all, and if it does, if we can then machine it and make it work the way it needs to work. So I'm going to try to get out what is left of the old adjuster system and see if we can make it work with this. The other thing that I got to update you on is my silver Jetta, my son's silver Jetta project, which we've been working on for a while, trying to fix all the stuff that other mechanic broke in his process of very helpfully installing what turns out to be, drum roll please.
Oh no, everything's fine.
A bad motor. Yes, indeed. He took out a motor that had seized up because, well, not seized up, but failed because of a timing belt letting go. So that motor, the original motor of the car, typical 1.8T issue, the timing belt let go because the water pump seized up, shredded the belt, and the valves kissed the pistons, all the valves, no longer good. So that head was probably rebuildable, but we'll never know because we were going to let it sit for a while. Somebody out of the goodness of their heart offered to let their mechanic fix it for me and put in a used motor.
And it exploded.
Unfortunately, the guy didn't check the motor before he installed it.
Look, I have one job on this lousy ship. It's stupid, but I'm gonna do it, okay?
Not only did he not check it for the basics, like does it even work? I understand. There are things you just can't do when it is not installed in the car yet. But you can crank it over by hand. You can do certain things like put on a new water pump and put on a new timing belt and put on new spark plugs. He did none of these things. He just threw in a motor without testing it, broke a million things in the process. I've spent over 100 hours plus, fixing all of the things that he has broken, just to get car to the point where I could turn it on without it dumping coolant all over the place and leaking like crazy. And of course, once we had it all together, and I could not figure out why the radiator fans weren't working, which, let me pivot on that for a second. Why weren't the radiator fans working? We went through all these diagnoses, all these procedures. We found that there were a couple of things that were wrong with it. I replaced the thermal fan switch, which was bad. And as it turns out, I should have tested the new one before I put it in, because the new one that I put in was bad. It was defective right from the factory. So I put in all this stuff, fixed everything, and the fans still were not working. Couldn't figure it out. I took it to my friends at Pure Motorsport. They dove into it with fresh eyes and said, oh yeah, well, the fan switch doesn't work. Put in a new fan switch. And they found one other potential problem, a clip that was loose, put in a new clip in part of the coolant system, and it ran fine, ran beautifully. Fans came on the way they're supposed to. They helped me out with a couple of other small details. Yes, R2, thank you. So all of that, and then the motor overheated. Shouldn't have overheated. Why did it overheat? Well, back into a little bit more of diagnosis, and we find out there's coolant in 2 of the cylinders. Yes, indeed, it had a bad head gasket, so it was overheating. So because it's a used motor, and I don't know the history of it, and I don't know how badly it had overheated previously before it ended up wherever it ended up in a wrecking yard, chances are that head is toast. Do we take that head out and have it machined and hope that it might be salvageable? That's a big set of dice to roll on that. So where I'm leaning is buying a replacement head that is already reconditioned, it's already got new valves, it's already been machined, it's ready to drop in, and then we can put in the new head gasket, timing belt, water pump, and all of that. And then essentially, we've done a top-end rebuild on the car, assuming the bottom end is okay. That's a big assumption at this point, but assuming it's okay, then that car should be good to go for a pretty long time. So that's the route we're taking with it. Gonna get, I'm gonna clarify, I am not gonna do this work on it. That is a lot of work, and I would rather go back to the fun projects like the Corrado and the Fiat that is sitting over there waiting very patiently for me to do some work and get her running again and start doing the restoration on her. So that is where I'm going to turn my attention, pardon me, as well as my wife's Sequoia, which we finally settled with the insurance company, and we're gonna get it fixed. So that's gonna be happening very soon. There's some body work that needs to be done. There's some stuff that I'll be doing. I'll be filming and covering that, but that is where these, quiet R2, that is where these projects are at, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna get to the Corrado. I'll report back on how things go with the tensioner bolt, and we'll report back on the other cars as we move forward. Thanks, bye.
5 minutes later.
Okay, just so you can see what we're talking about, this is the sad remnant of the original supercharger tensioner pulley bolt. And what's missing is basically all of this that broke off from it. You see this wonderful threaded hole here? That is supposed to have one. So you can see they've done some updates to the design. It looks a lot more robust. They've got this big thick section, which would be great to have threads all the way through it instead of just this one little tiny section that could be very weak and break. So you can see the improvement, but they didn't finish machining this one. So I am going to be giving it to my buddy, who's going to take it and machine it so that we can use this and be off to the races once again with the supercharged Corrado. So I will report back once it's been machined and is good to go.
And on that terrible disappointment, it's time to say goodbye. We'll be back.